Hello, hello. My name is Clark Heron, aka the Hairy Hobo, and welcome to another edition of the Final Drive. Today we'll be talking about this week of the college football playoffs, which is very close to the very end. Obviously, with some big games coming up, you cannot have any losses that are going to be detrimental to your team and your potential to finish in the Final Four. That being said, let's take a look back at this week's games to see exactly who helped and who hurt their cause. Now, obviously, there was only one team this week that lost in the top 10, so there will be minimal change. That being said, I think we'll start off at the top of the rankings and talk about my favorite team name in college football, the Citadel. Obviously, they played Alabama in Alabama this week, and for an entire half of football, they are on top of the college football world. Yes, they were tied with Alabama at 10 at the half. Crazy. I mean, imagine you're a player on that team and you can tell your kids that, hey, for an entire half, we were just as good as Alabama. Granted, Nick Saban said a few choice words at the half, and that quickly became, well, what we thought it was going to be. Alabama clearly ended their season very well in the second half and clearly stayed at the number one spot. But my Citadel held true. That being said, Alabama will still be the number one team heading into this week's rankings. At number two, no surprise here, the Clemson Tigers staying at number two. Nice, easy win for them. They will stay put, no problems there. At number three, the Irish had a good game in Yankee Stadium with some awful uniforms, to be honest with you, against Syracuse. A game that they needed to do two things. Number one, win to stay undefeated, which is really their main reason why they're ranked so high. And number two, win convincingly past that all-important eye test, especially since it's their last ranked opponent of the season before heading to the Coliseum to play USC next week. And I would say they checked off both of those boxes pretty easily. They won 29-0. Yes, Syracuse did lose their quarterback fairly early in that game, but still, Notre Dame got their key win, got the eye test passed, and they will move on and still hold the number three spot pretty clearly. If they win out, I would imagine they're probably going to be in the Final Four. At number four is Michigan. They will hold that spot at least for this week with a win over Indiana. Yes, they didn't quite look up to form this past week, especially on the defensive side of the football, but overall, you still get the win. You're still moving forward. They haven't done anything to lose that spot as of yet, but we may see a little bit of a change depending on what happens in the SEC championship game, because the team behind them holding the 5 spot is Georgia. Obviously, they will play Georgia Tech this coming week. They played UMass, which was an easy win for them. They should have another easy win and then head on to Atlanta for the SEC title game against Alabama. A critical game for Georgia. They have to get back their rival this week and then also win next week in order to be heavily considered in the Final Four. And we'll get to that in next week's video. At number 6, we have Oklahoma. Again, a team that has passed the test with the offensive side of the football. As for the defense, when you give up 40 points to Kansas, not so great. And that's unfortunately why they're sitting at number 6. They have the potential to potentially move up. They face West Virginia this week, which is going to be their last key matchup before heading into the Big 12 championship game that may not factor in too much in the committee's decision, depending on how they land. But sitting pretty at number 6, not too bad as of this moment. At number 7, again, unchanged, LSU, the only 2-loss team in the top 10. They played against probably the worst team in the college football, which was Rice. Sorry, just statistics don't lie. That being said, they'll hold steady at number 7. At number 8, again, holding steady is Washington State. Now, they handled Arizona, putting up 69 points. Their offense, very similar to Oklahoma's, very strong defensively, can be questionable at times, but they'll have a huge game Friday night, not Saturday, Friday night in the Apple Cup against rival Washington, which probably will be ranked in the top 15 if I had to guess for this coming weekend's game. That being said, Washington State has to do exactly what Notre Dame did this week. Win, and win convincingly to help claim their spot and potentially be in the top 4. Might be a little bit of a chaos needed for them to get there, but you got to win first. That's the most important thing. So now, before we get to the meat of the discussion for the College Football Playoff Committee this week, let's do a quick little recap. Number 1, Alabama. Number 2, Clemson. Number 3, Notre Dame. Number 4, Michigan. Number 5, Georgia. Number 6, Oklahoma. Number 7, LSU. And number 8, Washington State. So now we get to the point of the conversation where it's going to be very interesting to see how the committee decides who's 9 and who's 10. Obviously, with the West Virginia losing to Oklahoma State, they will fall out of the top 10, getting their second loss of the season and also giving up a ton of points in the process. I have them sitting at number 11, just outside, and with the ability to get back in if they happen to beat Oklahoma this coming week. And so what that means? Well, it simply means that Ohio State or UCF could be in the 9 and or 10 spots. I think that's the two teams that the committee will be talking about. Now, what's the argument for each of these teams? Well, for UCF, for example, they have a great offense. They've played very consistent football all season long, and they're undefeated. All very good things. And passing the eye test is very important late in the season. Now, the reason for Ohio State to be number 9 is they have a better overall resume, tougher resume. They have more ranked wins as well. But for Ohio State, they are struggling mightily to play an overall good football game. One week, their defense plays extremely well. The next week, they have Anthony McFarland run for 298 rushing yards against them rather easily. He almost broke 300, which would have been the first time since a certain Wolverine did it many years ago, Mr. Tim Biaka-Batuka. Yeah, how can I not leave his name out of this video? That's for sure. They got torched against Maryland this past week, but on the flip side, their offense looked rather good, throwing up almost 700 yards of total offense. So the committee's got to come down to the decision. Is it strength of schedule at this point, based on ranked wins, or is it the all-important eye test, even though you haven't really played a whole lot and your only ranked win was this past weekend against Cincinnati? Very deserving win, but unfortunately Cincinnati will obviously fall out of the top 25 at this point. It's a tough decision. I think at this point, most people might turn to UCF, but I think the Buckeyes will hold true at number 9. And the only reason for that is based on their ranked wins this season against Penn State, as well as another ranked win against Michigan State at the time. But it's going to be very close. It wouldn't surprise me if UCF ended up at the 9 spot at this time. But let's put Ohio State there and UCF at number 10, which, of course, Ohio State plays Michigan this coming week in the game, which would easily determine who's going to be in and who's going to be out. And as for the 12th team, I think this is where Florida slides up just one spot. They were 13th last week. They will slide up to the number 12 spot, which makes teams like Georgia and even LSU look a little bit better, even though if they lost or won against that team, it looks just a little bit better heading forward. So let's do a quick little recap. At number 10, UCF. Number 9, Ohio State. Number 8, Washington State. Number 7, LSU. Number 6, Oklahoma. Number 5, Georgia. Number 4, Michigan. Number 3, Notre Dame. Number 2, Clemson. And number 1, Alabama. So just a quick little change at the very end. I think that's what will happen when the committee convenes tomorrow evening and unveils their rankings at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on ESPN. And as always, I will have a rapid reaction video quick soon after, whichever one word you want, you can have at this point. I don't care. And as for now, my name is Clark Heron, a.k.a. the Hairy Hobo, and I'm out.